Welcome to the Depth Dive. Really glad you could join us. We've been looking through all the sources you sent over, and two big things jumped out. They seem totally separate at first glance. One is the huge impact of sleep on brain repair and function, and the other, which was pretty surprising, is creatine. Its benefits seem to go way beyond just building muscle.
Right. So our goal today really is to pull out the key insights from all this material. We want to help you understand not just what the research is saying, but maybe more importantly, why it matters for how you perform every day and just your general well-being.
Yeah, and honestly, as we were digging in, there were definitely some aha moments, some facts we really didn't expect. So, yeah, excited to share those. Okay, let's unpack this first big area then, the neuroscience of sleep, specifically its role in brain repair. I think a lot of people think sleep is just downtime, just resting. But this research you sent paints a very different picture. It's active. It seems fundamental for balancing brain repair and dealing with mitochondrial damage.
Exactly. And what's really striking is how melatonin fits in. We often think of it just for getting to sleep, right?
Yeah.
But it seems to actually regulate brain structures and mitochondria, too. It's apparently driving those repair processes while we're asleep. It highlights sleep as this, well, active maintenance period.
Okay, active maintenance. I like that. Now, to get deeper into that, one of the really interesting bits in the material was about fruit flies. Sounds a bit strange, I know, but what did those studies on their specific sleep neurons, the dFBN ones, what did they show?
Yeah, the fruit fly studies are fascinating. That's where some key insights came from. Researchers did something pretty clever. They made these neurons, the dFBN1s, glow green when they were active.
Oh, green.
Okay. And they saw that these neurons were quiet during normal sleep. Makes sense. But in flies that were kept awake, sleep deprived, these neurons stayed active, glowing, for up to 12 hours straight, like working overtime.
Wow, 12 hours.
And crucially, they found a direct link between that lack of sleep, that extended neuron activity, and actual mitochondrial damage in the fly's brains.
So, okay, damage linked to less sleep. How did they test that further? Did they manipulate it?
They did. It's quite neat, actually. When they exposed those specific dFBN1 neurons to light, it kept the flies awake.
Force them awake with light on the neurons.
Essentially, yes. And conversely, when they kept the flies in the dark, deprived of light, they slept more.
Makes sense.
But here's the kicker. Maybe even just the first hour of light exposure in the morning could make the flies wake up earlier overall.
Just 1 hour.
Yeah. It suggests there's this really sensitive link, between light, these specific brain cells, and how sleep and mitochondrial health are regulated.
It's wild, isn't it, that we can learn so much about our own brains from fruit flies.
It really is.
It speaks to how some of these biological mechanisms are just fundamental, universal almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the research does make that leap. It connects these fruit fly findings to us, to humans. It mentions work by Iwona Kickman at King's College London. Her research apparently suggests that this imbalance in mitochondrial health, it correlates pretty strongly with sleep deficiency across lots of animal species. And that includes us.
Right. So what's the big takeaway for us for our own sleep? Because it sounds like it's more complex than just, getting 8 hours.
Exactly. If these mechanisms hold true, and they seem to, it really emphasizes that sleep isn't just about feeling rested. It's fundamentally about restoring balance at a cellular level. It's critical for brain repair. And Professor Creatin's view, also in your sources, kind of hits this home. Just counting the hours might really miss the point about sleep quality.
Quality over quantity.
Precisely. How effectively your sleep allows these crucial repair processes to actually happen in your brain.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, so speaking of surprising connections and things that affect performance, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the second big theme from the sources, creatine. Now, most people probably hear creatine and think, gym, muscles. But the research you shared points to some really interesting broader benefits. This is where it gets quite intriguing.
Yeah, creatine is definitely well known as a supplement, especially for athletes. It's a natural compound. Your body makes some. You get it from meat and fish, too. And its main job, as most people know, is helping muscle cells produce ATP.
Right, the energy currency.
Exactly. Adenosine triphosphate, ATP, it powers muscle contractions.
Yeah.
What's much less known, and frankly more surprising from these sources, is that it does the same thing in your brain cells.
Okay, so it's not just for muscles then. What kind of cognitive boost are we talking about? What did the sources detail?
Well, the sources do confirm the physical side, maybe a 10–20% boost in short bursts of intense exercise. And it's generally seen as safe for most people, though long-term effects always need more study. But the brain connection is the really interesting part here. Brain cells use a ton of energy.
Right.
So creatine helping ATP production there is potentially significant. There was a review mentioned in the journal Nutrients, highlighted in your materials. It found evidence suggesting creatine can, in some situations, improve things like short-term memory.
Memory.
Yeah, and logical reasoning, even attention.
That's quite a jump from just physical performance. Does it go further into like mood or mental fatigue?
It seems it might.
Hmm.
If you connect the dots, providing more energy to brain cells.
Yeah.
Well, there's potential for impacting mood, too. Some reports suggest it might help reduce symptoms of depression or even just alleviate mental fatigue. It points towards a potentially broader role in keeping your brain running efficiently.
Mm. And there was that specific study mentioned, right, to kind of show it's not just for athletes. They gave creatine to creative individuals.
That's the one. 7 creative individuals, not necessarily bodybuilders or anything, and they saw a 50% reduction in markers associated with brain injury.
50%, that's significant. And definitely outside the usual gym context.
It is. But it's really important to add the nuance that the sources also provide.
Okay.
Creatine is pretty inexpensive, readily available, but its benefits aren't necessarily the same for everyone. How much it helps seems to depend partly on your brain's own baseline ATP production and also what your diet is like.
So it's not a magic bullet.
Not exactly. It's not like, say, vitamin C, where it's generally good for everyone in a similar way. Understanding the mechanism boosting ATP for energy is really key. That helps you understand why and when it might be beneficial for you specifically.
Right. Understanding the how. That makes sense. So, okay, let's try and pull this together. What does it all mean? We've looked at 2 really different areas today based on the material you shared. Both seem valuable, though. On one hand, you've got this deep, hidden repair work happening during sleep, impacting your brain at a mitochondrial level. And on the other, you have something like creatine, often seen simply as a muscle supplement, but potentially offering real cognitive benefits. It really shows how these seemingly small things can have pretty big and often overlooked impacts on how we function day to day.
Yeah, so today we really dug into sleep, the importance of mitochondrial balance, brain repair, and maybe focusing more on quality, not just hours slept. And then we explored creatine, looking beyond the muscles to its potential for boosting brain energy, helping with memory, focus, maybe even mood.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? About how interconnected everything is. How much our physical state, like sleep quality or even just cellular energy levels from something like creatine intake, is tied to our mental sharpness, our cognitive performance. It leaves you wondering, what other seemingly simple parts of our daily life, things we barely notice, might be having these profound effects on how well your brain works?